Do you think the biggest shift you've seen since COVID?
How divisive we can get as a population,
Okay.
and how one person's opinion doesn't matter to the other person, and vice versa. I think we've grown into a world, even our media, that we believe the 15-second meme that we have on our phones is right.
Welcome to One World Countless Stories podcast with me, Selena Novello. Today, I have Geoff Wilson on, and if you hear me call him Mr. Geoff, it's because I have known him since I was really, really young, and I don't know why, but back in the day, we would just call all the parents in our lives by Mr. or Mrs. and their first name. So if I call him Mr. Geoff, that's where that's coming from, but I'm very excited to have you on today. I know a very little part about your story and little bites and bits of it, but I'm excited to hear a little bit more. So let's get started. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us anything that you feel is important for us to know about you?
Well, Selena, thanks for the invite here today. I appreciate what you're doing and positive stories that you are encouraging through this type of podcast, but also for uplifting the things that you do for others within the community. I think it's one of the parts of the story we're going to touch on today, how we've lost a little bit of our humanity within our society today, but I'll probably get into that a little bit more in depth. But as for me, I've lived in Cochrane for about 15 years with my wife, Stephanie, and our children, Sydney and Zachary. I'm currently a sergeant in the Calgary Police Service, and I love my career. And those I serve both professionally and those other members that belong to CPS.
Awesome. So why don't we start with your childhood, and you can tell us a little bit about where you were raised and your childhood.
Awesome. Yeah. I was raised in Medicine Hat. And when I think back to the 70s and 80s and life as a kid, and watching my kids grow up, I think our lives were much simpler.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't the huge computer or social media that really didn't. The computer side of things didn't start hitting until I was like in basically grade 9, 10, 11, and 12, when it kind of started taking off. And I think because of that, computers have taken on a substantial amount of our kids' times and made life, like I said, a lot more complicated. I think kids, as opposed to when I was a kid, were exposed for way too much at any time in our history. But for me, I spent my childhood outside, riding my BMX bike at the dead end and going over, falling down and hurting myself and coming back home crying and being told basically, okay, well, nothing's broken, put a Band-Aid on it and get back
Yeah.
out. Street hockey was big. I remember, especially as a kid, every Saturday afternoon we get our $5 allowance, and I'd go to Woolworths. I would go buy a little hot rods car for like $1, go upstairs to the cafeteria, get fries, gravy, and a Coke, and then still have enough money to go to a movie at
What?
the town theater.
You're kidding me.
No, all for $5. And
Wow.
I spent I was broke before 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon. So, but like I said, that was my Saturday afternoon, besides the exception of playing hockey and whatnot. So my childhood in Medicine Hat was phenomenal. I don't have any issue. I really missed my childhood, looking at how we are today. My childhood was awesome.
And you said you played hockey. Did you play on a team as well, or just more like street hockey and just fooling around a bit?
No, played on a team, but the difference between then and now is that our hockey rinks, we were outside with a roof.
Okay.
And then the change rooms were in a building unto itself, very small, with a small concession. But we didn't have plexiglass on the edge of the ices. We had like chain link fence. So it was much different. Again, we didn't really have NHL aspirations because really we weren't exposed to that stuff. We played because we loved getting out and playing. Our practices would be at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'll never forget, down from the Moose Rec Center. And,
you're kidding. It's actually called that.
Yeah, the Moose Recreation Center. And it would be our practices on Sunday morning would be at 6 a.m. and the facility person would never show up. So one of our coaches would always have to break in to get in. Every time we'd have to break in every Sunday morning. Not me, but the coach would break into the building to get in so we could get changed.
That's awesome. Such a good memory. And
Mm.
so moving into your life a little bit, how was high school for you?
I think, like most, I think school for some of us is difficult.
Mhm.
I I didn't love the content of school. I love the social aspect of school. I had lots of friends, played football, played baseball, um, but it just wasn't. School came. I didn't. I struggled in school. Let's just call it that. But I enjoy the. I cheated. You know, my French teacher was a shop teacher, and we did some really silly things. He'd leave the classroom, or we'd go in at lunch and we'd change our marks in his mark book. And I don't know if I should be telling you that, or we
Oh
should
my
let it
gosh,
go.
you were a rebel a little bit.
But we'd erase the mark and put another mark in there just so we knew. Well, he shouldn't have been teaching French. He didn't. We weren't learning anything, and I wasn't going to fail. From somebody who couldn't even teach the subject. So
That's
a
right.
couple of us would go in, and I don't know if that particular teacher, I won't say a name, is ever listening to this, but I
Oh,
did make it. I did make it after all. I got through. So,
that's good. So you graduated, and then what happened after that?
well, I moved around a lot. In my heart, I was truly an entrepreneur, but I didn't want to say I never left Medicine Hat. So I went on a ski trip with my three buddies after graduation, and we came home, and I made a decision. My parents were away in New York, and I made a decision to move to Toronto the morning after we got back.
Oh.
So I packed a couple of suitcases. My aunt had a business down there, which she'd already always offered me a job, and I had an open ticket for whenever I wanted to go. So I took advantage of that, and I moved down there, and I
Mhm.
worked for her. I'll never forget when I got down there. I met my parents at their hotel because they were arriving the same day I arrived, and I opened the hotel doors for them because I was waiting in the lobby for them to let them know that I had moved. And
Mhm.
my mom and dad walk right by me. Oh, thank you very much for holding the door, sir. And they walk in, and then my dad stops and takes a look, goes, "What are you doing here?" So I told them I moved, and I didn't want to. I think we put too much thought in a lot of things, and I've always been very spontaneous. After Toronto, I lived there for about 6 months. I went to all the Maple Leaf games. The scalper that that I got the tickets from by the end of the year just gave me the tickets for cost because I got the same seat in the old Maple Leaf Gardens at that. So I got to experience the old Maple Leaf Gardens, which you can't replicate that environment even in
Mhm.
today's day and age. Then I moved to Thunder Bay. Um, and I had my best friends who lived in Medicine Hat had moved there a couple years prior to that, and they're close friends. Their mom and their parents were basically my second parents, and I
Mhm.
lived there for a while. But Thunder Bay, I just started to realize, maybe this isn't for me. So I
Mhm.
moved home, started with Earl's Restaurants, and we could get into all the places I lived working for them. But wonderful experience with them, and they gave me 9 years of incredible education when it came to the restaurant um, side of things, which inevitably I opened my own after that.
That's awesome. So, what did you want to be when you grew up? Because it sounds like you had an entrepreneurial spirit, like you said, but you kind of bounced around and did a bunch of different jobs.
I guess I really wanted to be a police officer at 19. Yeah, 19. I applied to the RCMP. And I'll never forget, I was working at Earl's that day, and my mom called, and an orange envelope from the RCMP had arrived. So in that, I had failed the eye test by like the margin of error between a couple of doctors. And that was because I think that's where our diversity in that organization, it started to, wasn't as diverse as what Canada was starting to look like. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of debate was given in that. But I always wanted to be a police officer. I don't know why that is. It was just always part of my DNA. And
Mhm.
although it took a number of years after the restaurant industry and being in that industry for over 20 years, at 35 years old, I got into the Calgary Police Service. And as of next week, I'm 15 years complete. It was really difficult when you haven't been in school since you were 18 years old, and you're now, have to go through rigmarole. And you know what the toughest part was? The disclosure form, and going through 57 pages of your life and trying to go back and all the silly, stupid things that we do as kids. And not harmful, but you get some time to reflect on your life and go, I wasn't a bad kid, but boy, did I do some stupid things. And those are the lessons you try to instill in your kids, not to have to reflect back on those. But at the end of the day, it made me the person who I am today. And I think
Mhm.
I think I'm a pretty good person. I'm not perfect, but I think life has taught me well.
Absolutely. And so, in that, when you were in the time of your life, when you were in the restaurant industry, what did you do?
I started at the ground with Earl's, and
Okay.
I did every position in Earl's, from server, dishwasher, line cook, prep cook, assistant, day managers. I did everything. And then I tested my own skill set by moving to another company called Gulliver's Grill when I was troubleshooting in Earl's in Grand Prairie.
Mhm.
And then I started with Gulliver's Grill, and it really honed my skill set. And from there, I decided that I wanted to branch out on my own, and we opened our first restaurant there. It was actually a sports pub called the Stump and Pump Sports Pub and Grill, and it was one of the best things I ever got to do because it was from scratch, and I got
Yeah.
to build it from there's an old restaurant in there before, but I got to design. A lot of work though. It's tough work when you all of a sudden doing it yourself. You realize why organizations, it's so hard to get and be successful and grow.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, did you start it by yourself, that restaurant or pub?
Yeah, I had to build a business case, which I'd never done before, but I built one, and there's a couple regular customers that I knew had a little bit of dough, and I approached them with my proposal, and they didn't buy so much in the concept, but they bought into me because I think, well, they knew they could believe it, that I was a hard worker, and they trusted me to get their investment back. And
Mhm.
it was a very unique experience to get that kind of support from people you kind of know, but you certainly, I worked probably harder than I ever did because I certainly don't want to let people down. So it was a financial risk, but a rewarding all the same.
Wow. So, what would you say the biggest thing you learned from being in the service industry?
That it's a people-based business, and I think I'll take my experience from way back then, and I had some incredible people work for me when I have time to reflect on my time way back. And I can't always say I treated them right in the sense of I was the boss and they worked for me. In my policing career, I don't take that attitude anymore. I'm very much, if you work for me, I think we have more of a problem of employee boss relationship, and I don't like that. So if you work with me, it's a shared leadership responsibility, and I
Mhm.
think that's really has been the defining moment for me, is understanding that industries I've worked in are people based, and as soon as we forget that they're people based, that's when you start getting lost in the minutia of crap. And like
Mhm.
anybody that wants to be called the boss, I think they lose right up front, and that's just my experience. I think you have to give those people that you've taken the time to hire and train and develop the latitude in which to grow and make
Mhm.
mistakes, and talk about those mistakes without being overly critical. And so they understand that there's room to grow without I don't know everything, and but I certainly like to learn from other people, especially those that are new, and especially into my career, because they all come from different backgrounds.
Absolutely. So, what was that shift? What made you switch your mindset about I am the boss to we are working on this together?
I guess your feedback from people, and I think and I think over time, and I hate to use this adage of, as you get older, you get more mature and you understand more, and the things that used to really bother you don't,
Mhm.
because there are things that they're not worth your time to over obsess about, because we all make mistakes. Everybody's journey is different. But I guess in my own life with my own family, my wife and kids, I think we all have our dynamics, and I think kids can teach you a lot. And I think if you can create that loving home and supportive home, I think you can get that honest feedback. Even when you don't want it, you'll
Mhm.
honestly get it back. And I think that's gives you time to reflect.
Yeah. So you started your own restaurant or pub, whatever we're going to call that. And that must have been very exciting for you. What was that like as a young man to have all of this pressure, but also opportunity at your fingertips?
I would have to say that's probably the most stressful I've been in my life. Right down to the part I was having heart palpitations, so I had to carry this portable heart monitor because there's just so much pressure and people are relying on you. But I look back, it gave me the opportunity and the foundation to get out of that one, sell it, and move to Brandon, Manitoba, and open another restaurant there called Calhoun's Classic Grill, and it was a lot easier. I don't ever like when I don't like relying on other people for things. I really don't. I know parts of my times in my life I've had to, and but it's not something I've ever relished of relying on other people. Even this job, I don't relying on the city of Calgary to give me my paycheck, although I very much appreciate it.
Mhm.
All that has led to me having an Airbnb in my own residence today that's very successful, and because I've never lost that entrepreneurial spirit, and I at some point I still want to make it on my own,
Mm.
but I certainly won't give up the pension to do that.
Yeah. That's actually really fascinating. I did not know that about you, that you had such an entrepreneurial drive in you. And what I love about what you said is that you kind of just you went with the flow a bit, where you sold that restaurant, then you started a new one, and you've just kind of been going along with it. And so why did you have to, or no, how do I want to word this? Sorry. How did you overcome those like health issues that you were having and the stress that you were dealing with? How'd you deal with those things?
I don't think you ever, as an entrepreneur, you work the 18 to 20 hours a day. You work 7 days a week. Um, you know, you just do. It's there's worse things in the world to be doing, but you certainly don't want to let people down, and
Mhm.
you certainly want your staff to get days off, and your investors to get their money back. And there's catering, there's entertainment bookings. I used to fall sleep in the booth during the Christmas season because at my restaurant in Brandon, we had yuck yucks for 3 weeks straight that was sold out every night.
Wow.
We bring in the high school to do their band performances. We do bring in baby grand pianos for Valentine's Day. We give away hot tubs. You're always trying to keep up with um, the chains, and you had to establish yourself as being that much different, but having great food. And I'll go back. Earl's gave me the education. When we talk about not going to school and doing all those things,
Mhm.
that organization did a lot for me, and I appreciate them and that for what they did for me. It was a good growing up experience there too.
That's awesome. And I like that point. Yeah, when you're an entrepreneur, you're going to work so hard to make sure that all those things are done. And it's crazy when you total up all the hours that you probably spent working. So I definitely know what you're talking about. So when did you get into the Calgary Police Department?
2007. I finally had enough of the restaurant industry. I burned out. I was
Mhm.
headhunted by a couple companies in Calgary, and I came for some interviews. And I basically had job offers from both, and but a week in to one of them, I just knew I was done. And my wife was still in Brandon, and she sent me the disclosure form a couple weeks before that because she knew I was frustrated. And so I filled it out. And from the day I filled it out and sent it in, like it took a few days, but I sent it in on November 27th, which was my son's birthday. I think it was
Mhm.
his fourth birthday. And in 3 months, I was in classes. On February 27th, it only took me 3 months to get it all done and go through the whole entire process, which was quite quick. And there's some testing that you go through, and I just had to get through the first part of the test. And once I got through the written part and the comprehension part, I knew I knew I would have it. But it was just a matter of 35 years old, settling in and getting ready for what was coming, because it's hard when you start getting a little bit older, and running and weightlifting and the brain and criminal code classes and provincial law classes and
Mhm.
drill. It's a lot,
It's
but
intense. Yeah.
it was very impactful in my life, and I have no regrets.
That's awesome. So by that point, you already had a daughter and a son. So when did you meet Stephanie, your wife, and that whole journey?
I moved back to Medicine Hat after being in Thunder Bay,
Yeah.
but I also wasn't done moving around because Earl's gave me the opportunity to live in Edmonton,
Mhm.
um, Calgary, back to Medicine Hat, and I decided to go back to school, and because I actually at that point in time I wanted to be a player agent because
Oh,
I knew that you could see contracts were going up, and I love sports, and I thought, where would a fit for me be? So I moved back to Medicine Hat. I got a job back at the Earls there, and I went out. Oh, actually, no, I was stuccoing. I was doing stucco. That's right. That's where your dad and I can have some good conversations. I got on with Olson Plaster and Stucco in Medicine Hat, and Dave Olson. I think the world of that guy. He really made us work hard, but we were young and stupid. But he was an awesome boss, and owner actually. So I it was a day Friday night, and I got really tired. I was really tired because it was so hot in Medicine. I was plus 35 all the time in the summer,
wow.
and a couple of my buddies said, "Let's go out tonight." I said, "Nah, I'm out. I'm staying home." And
Mhm.
then I decided to go out that night, and I met Steph at the bar that night, and I went home. She went home, and we went out for lunch the next day. And funny thing, we went to Earl's on the patio to have lunch, and I was 27 at the time,
Mhm.
and I was drinking my iced tea, and I asked her what her age was because I seriously thought she was 25. I'm not joking. I did, and she told me she was 19. So I'm drinking my iced tea, and under my breath, I'm going, "Well, this is done. This is not going to work because I'm not a bar. I'm out of the bar scene. I'm done."
Yeah.
And I guess 25 years later, this year, 22 years married and 25 years and two kids later, and a few moves, this is where we are.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. That's such a cute story. I love that. I
I
can't
think
believe the age difference. That's crazy.
not bad. Now it doesn't seem so bad. She's 43, I'm 52. It doesn't seem so bad.
Yeah, not so bad at all. That's awesome. So when did you guys have your first daughter?
June 16th, 1998. So that would have been just a little bit before a year after we met.
Okay. Wow.
We were
Were
early.
were you married yet or no?
No,
No.
we waited a couple of years because you know what, we wanted to make sure it was going to work.
Yeah.
My parents were very old fashioned, like when you get married, and nah, I'm not yet. But we
Mhm.
had to work a lot of things through, and we've done that. It's been a journey though. I mean, like every relationship, there's ups and there's downs, there's twists and turns, but you create that partnership, and you make some good decisions and learn from the bad ones. So
What would be your number one piece of advice with just in the relationships in general?
understand that as you get older and you grow and the things that you've done in your life, you both change. And the kids get involved, and you kind of lose yourselves. You kind of lose who you were and why you got together, and different things become your commonality. And I think you have to really remember not to lose yourself or that partnership. And you have to find the date nights. You have to find the holidays. You have to find the time to go away. You have to make time for yourselves. There's no question. I think society today is polarizing. There's lots of things going on, and I think that would be my advice, Selena. I think be honest with one another and know that there's going to be challenges.
I think that's a great piece of advice, honestly. I think it's really important that we acknowledge that, people will grow in different ways, but to just make time to remember who you are and who you are as a couple, too.
Critical. I think, and to that though, I think people sometimes take an easy way out and don't work through it. And I think at some point in time, if it doesn't, then people move on. But I think if you can't leave a relationship as friends, and I know there's dynamics at play for a lot of different people, and
Mhm.
I don't think after you've had kids and the journeys that you've been on that you vilify the other person to a point where you start fighting over silly things. And I get that from my job. I watch people basically destroy their financial ability because they're so mad at the other person instead of understanding it just didn't work out, and it's okay. It is, it's okay.
Yeah, totally. And so your first child was a daughter. What was that like for you?
Um, yeah, don't make me tear up here. Because I go back and those are always emotional moments. Those are with your kids, and seeing what your spouse has to go through to successfully do that. But I've got two amazing kids. Yeah, I love them dearly. I'm gonna tear up here, so I don't want to talk too much about them because
It's okay.
I appreciate both of them and the people that they're turning out to be. So they're very very great young adults, great kids. I love them.
That's awesome. So let's go back into the part of your story where I think you said your son was 4 and you were doing your training and getting into the police industry. So what happened next? Bring us through that whole journey.
Oh, policing is a wonderful career. I mean, it's a tough job. The journey 15 years later, you got a lot of battle scars mentally. You try not to bring a lot of things home because you deal and see a lot of things that you could never let the general public know. I know some people hate police or dislike us, but make no mistake about it, we're members of our communities and we have kids involved in a lot of things, and we're still the ones that are first into something that's dangerous. And we're the first ones in when some families are going through the worst moments of their life. And I can tell you, I got goosebumps on my spine just talking about it, because there's some tough things that we have to see and tough things that we have to deal with. But I wouldn't change the career. I've encouraged my daughter to get into it and my son. And I think it's, much as those battle scars are tough, it's still a rewarding career because you get to help people. And I know that's a very generic statement. But we get to help people, and if there's a message, don't hate the cops. We're not bad. We have our bottom 10% like every other organization, unfortunately. But we work really hard at what we do, and make no mistake about it. When we're racing to a call that someone's in need of some major assistance, we're the ones that put ourselves in front of people to help defend them. So.
Absolutely. And how do you deal with those very strong mental issues and mental things that come up?
You just have to have an out. And through the years that changes. You have to have mine is my drive. I got a 40-minute drive home, so I get to decompress. And there's times I come home and my kids will tell you, my wife will tell you that sometimes I'll just say I need 15 minutes or 20 minutes. I'll go up to my room and I'll close the door and because I'm not done decompressing, because there's some calls that you go to that are troubling, and you can't really share those. You share those. And that's why the teams within the organization that we work are so important, because we keep a lot of stuff out of our family view. But we rely on our folks that we work with to be those shoulders and that family at work, that you're not replacing your family at home, but you certainly know what each one of you are going through.
Mm-hmm. And would you say there's something else, a part of that career that's very difficult?
Yeah, it's the generational issues of new members coming in. You start being a more senior guy around and having your teams, and you see some of the younger people that maybe don't quite understand how hard the job is yet. And I think members forget now why they joined the job so early, in the sense of you got to work the street to earn the respect and the time and understanding of why you're there. If you get into policing in 2 years and think you deserve to go to a specialty unit like Hawks or K9 or TAC or an investigative unit, that. In fact, I talked to somebody today at a funeral for a fallen member. Our member, his child died, and we were talking about. And I hate to use the word entitlement, but there is a different police officer that's coming in that earn your time, earn the right to say things that that you'll be able to have the knowledge in which to successfully participate in a conversation that you'll understand better. I just think people have to do their time on the street, and I tell my kids the same thing. Don't look at anything for 5 to 7 years. Earn your way. Everything is earned. Nothing is given. That's what I always tell my kids. Everything is earned. And if you expect something to be given, then give your head a shake, because it's not coming.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say the best part about your career is?
Well, I guess I'm going to internally, like, the work that I get to do is very rewarding, because you get to help people. Mm-hmm. But from a personal standpoint, financial stability, it's given us a nice house, nice holidays.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be able to give some back to charity. And stuff like that. It gives stability in a very volatile society, I guess. That's from a personal and selfish standpoint. It's
Yeah.
given me the ability to I'm taking my degree right now. I'm in university at 52 years old and taking my degree. And I didn't think I'd ever go back to school. Again, it's very difficult to balance because it's 15 to 18 hours a week for me outside of my full-time job, but I'm dedicated to that. And I guess that's very rewarding because I'm taking my degree in policing. And it really is the here and now and the reforms in policing that are happening. And society is expecting police to be different. And we better be ready to be different. There's things that police do, but there is expectations of 135 years of history within the Calgary Police Service, layers and layers of things that have gone on in the past that we need to really address, get out in front of, and understand that they happened. Lots of things happened. But we all have to get back to the table. Everybody in society is on the left wing or right wing, and nobody wants to get to the table. The only way things get accomplished at any point in history is when we got to the table.
Yeah.
And we're so divided and it's so divisive, and it shouldn't be that way. We should all understand that to get something, we're going to have to give a little bit up. So that's my political stance there. Sorry.
That's okay. That's fine. And that kind of leaded me into one of the questions that I wanted to ask you on, since you have a very interesting perspective, in my opinion, because you've seen society at their most vulnerable, worst, and also some really great times as well. And so I'm curious how you think COVID affected the society. Was it negative? Was it positive? I kind of have a feeling I know what you're going to say a little bit, but I'd love to hear from your perspective. What do you think the biggest shift you've seen since COVID?
How divisive we can get as a population, and how one person's opinion doesn't matter to the other person, and vice versa. I think we've grown into a world, even our media, that we believe the 15-second meme that we have on our phones is right. And instead of researching, we don't research. Report everything today. I guess what it really pointed out to me is that everything's about power and money. Everything is about power and money. And I wish I didn't have to believe that or see that, but I got to be honest with you. You see what goes on in American politics, you see what's going on in our politics, and COVID really opened up the wounds that have always been there. It's death by a million cuts. And the wound is deep now. And unless we get back to civility and understand we can be different. But I'm a conservative person, but I have grown to have liberal values. And I think people have liberal background can have conservative values. But we all have to find that we have to help people that are down and out sometimes. We don't have to like it, but we have to.
Yeah.
It's an expensive place to live now, as everyone will tell you. And it's not easy, but we have to find civility. We live in democracies, and it's okay to have opinions that are opposite of somebody else's. But I've seen it. I think it's been very divisive, and I think it's been very negative, and it's unfortunate. I failed science. I'll tell if a million scientists tell me to go get vaccinated, I failed science. I'm not a scientist. I'm going to trust that, but for me, that's the right way to go. But I'm not going to berate anybody that doesn't believe that either, though. They have their belief system, and I respect that. And why would we not respect that? That's why we have a democracy.
Yeah.
No one's right or wrong, good or bad, indifferent, whatever. To give something, to get something. But I've got really good friends that won't get vaccinated. But it really, unfortunately, gave us a look at how bad our society is, or not bad, how negative it is right now.
Yeah, I think it's broken for sure. And I definitely agree with you where we need to come together a little bit more and just accept and love a little bit more. And it can be very heartbreaking as someone, just a young person watching and just listening and hearing and observing people. I think for me, something that's been really hard is that I feel like I don't know what to do. I don't know what I can do to support. And it's very interesting to hear your opinion on the matter. And just it's very refreshing, in my opinion, because I've been hearing that very divided side where it's one way or another. You have to do this or you're no good. Or if you do this, then you're great. Like, it's just like such a divided world. And so what do you think for the younger generations that are being brought up in this division? What do you think the long-term effects of it is going to be?
fix it.
Okay.
It's your responsibility. The torch will get passed at some point. But yeah, listen, I'll tell you what I summed it up watching the Super Bowl last Sunday, and a particular show came on, a reality show, and I looked at the reality show, and one girl says, "Oh, I can't wait to get in that house so I can backstab. I can't wait to backstab the next person, or I can't wait to." To me, in a 30-second commercial, that is what's wrong with society. We believe in people that are just doing it for the glorification of recognize me, my 12 hours of fame. I want millions of dollars to do it. Instead of just getting to know your neighbors, getting to know people, we just, what's in it for me, I think, is the problem with society. Everyone, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
Well, a good society, a good place to live. That's what's in it for you. Great communities. And we just have gone off the deep end with this stuff in our youth. And I'm not going to say a broad stroke. I'm not going to say everybody, because I've met some really good kids. But what I would say is that they have the opportunity to make it right. They have the opportunity to fix it. And don't believe in the 15-second meme. Research what you want to believe. If you can back it up with proper research, pro and con, then you'll be educated in things. But don't just believe other people because you think they're smarter than you are.
Yeah.
Research it.
That's so powerful. I love that. Thank you for saying that and sharing that perspective with all of us. And this leads really nicely into my next question of, if you had to create one law for everyone to follow, what would that be?
Ooh, I don't know if you could come up with one.
Okay, well, your top one. Let's say you had like 15, maybe your favorite one.
You can't hate anybody. You're not allowed to hate. You can dislike. But my dad always taught me that, because sometimes I come home and I hate that person. My dad was a religious man, and he was such a soft guy. And he always said, you can't hate. Hate is so bad. That's when we start being divisive. You can dislike something that somebody does, but to say you hate them, if I could create one law, you're not allowed to hate anybody. You can dislike, but you can't hate.
That's powerful. I love that. That's so fascinating. I love that answer. Thank you so much for opening up about all of that. And I want to switch a little bit into more about your personal life versus your career. And I want to ask you, what is something in your personal life that was very life altering, that was like maybe one of your biggest obstacles, or something that you weren't expecting to have as a challenge in your life?
I wouldn't call it a challenge, but the biggest selfish thing is that I was adopted, Selena, at birth. And I always felt it important to find my biological family. And I had a great upbringing. I have one brother and three sisters. But I had a very diverse understanding, very political family, into music. I was adopted. I was the odd kid because I wanted to play sports, but I still had to do cello, clarinet, violin, ballet.
You did ballet?
Briefly. I actually cried my way out of that one.
Okay.
But I had to learn balance before I was allowed to play hockey, but I was able to cry my way out of that.
Okay.
So I found my biological parents 4 years ago. So I guess from just a life altering I've got a wonderful relationship with them. In fact, I'm going to Florida to see them in 2 weeks. They're wonderful people. And my mom, because my dad's passed on, but my mom and sisters met them, and it was a very good introduction. And not to beat it, but it was a wonderful opportunity to close that loop of where do I fit in the world, I think. And I was lucky. I wasn't one of the lucky ones that had a mom who gave me a name at birth, and she loves me as if I was in her life the whole time.
And did you always know that you were adopted, or when did you find out? You knew?
My whole life. And I know my dad never really wanted to tell me, but my mom was very open to it. And I appreciate the fact that they ended up being open about it. When I remember when I first was trying to get my identifying records from the Alberta government, my mom was very supportive, but I needed my dad to understand that I needed him to sign the document to let me go do it. I'm going to get emotional here because it was a really good conversation that I had with my dad. And it's one of the more serious ones as a young man that I got to have with him. And the one thing he always said is that I don't want to lose you as my son. And yeah, I was his kid. So.
And that was hard for him because he thought that he was going to lose you when you
Yep.
found your other parents. And I'm sure when you found your other parents, was your dad still alive at that time?
No,
No.
but I would have loved him to have met.
Mhm.
Let's be. It's my bio mom. My bio dad, I don't know, but the man that she's married to could be my dad, and he's a wonderful, wonderful man, and I'm glad I've got to build a relationship with him.
And how did this affect you as a child and throughout your life? Did you have different feelings of like something was missing, or
Yeah,
what were your feelings? Yeah.
exactly that. There was always because I was different than my siblings, not in a bad way. Just like I said, I like sports. I like different, I like debate. I like different things. My family that I grew up was very culturally minded, and having diversity within our who we are as in people was very important and obviously impactful for all of us, and it's helped us all in our lives. But yeah, my mom and dad in Medicine were awesome, and my bio family in Ontario / Florida are fantastic. I got 3 half sisters out of that too. So
Oh, wow.
yeah,
So your family grew a lot. And when did you start this process of trying to find them?
I guess I would have been 16, and it took me till I was 47. And what did it for me is my wife and daughter and son bought me that ancestry DNA kit. And
Okay.
so I did the kit, and a couple months later, I got the results back, and then I got an email from a girl asking why I was on their family tree, and that she was a cousin, and that's how we started the process of making sure that we were going to go down the road. Because at the end of the day, I just wanted to get a message to my biological mother. Worst case, to let her know that the decision that she had made back then was the right one. And I have no ill will feelings towards her. I was brought up in a wonderful family. I have my own wife and incredible kids, and my life is good, and I've got a good career, and she didn't have to worry about me anymore. That's kind of what my message was for her.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, that's amazing that you really just wanted to put her at ease in finding her to just be like, it's okay, I'm okay. And why did it take so long to get there? Was there just like really hard to find your parents, or what
it's
was
a
that?
long process. You have to do a lot of digging on your own. I went as far when I was younger, when I first started the process, to get a second job, to hire a private investigation company to help me.
Wow.
But then you start having kids of your own and things get expensive. And I put it to the side for a while. But then when I didn't get I got my non-identifying information, but a few years after that, I was married, and the government, we were allowed to get our identifying information as long as your biological parent didn't restrict that. So I was married at the time when I got the identifying information. And I'll never forget when I got it. We were living in Brandon. I think Sid was born. I don't know if Zach was born yet, but I'll never forget. I opened it, all my identifying information, and in there was a small letter from her. And it was the most emotional moment of my life in a very selfish way, because at that point, I knew how much she cared for me in that half a page letter and why she did it. And that's why I wasn't scared to let her know that I was good and the decisions she made. But I, just from that letter, she would have worried about me her whole life, and talking to her obviously and being very engaged with them. And she was extremely worried. February 1st is a date she's never forgotten. So
And why was that so emotional for you?
because it closes a loop. You talk about, was there something missing in your psyche or your soul or your heart? I don't know, but it certainly fulfilled whatever was missing. Um, I wasn't a question mark anymore. I guess I existed and I was happy and I had all these great opportunities, but there's always that personal there's just something in your inner being that you needed to get to close the loop.
And so when was the first time you met her?
We flew to Waterloo, and I booked them a hotel room at the Delta, and we booked a hotel room, and so we got there a little bit earlier than they did, and we were in a room. Then there was a knock at the door, and my wife opened the door, and June came walking right in, and just a 47-year-old hug in the making. For about 5 minutes, she wouldn't let go of me. So yeah.
And what was that like for you to get that hug?
That's a very emotional moment. Again, I'm lucky that I've been able to be surrounded by people that know how to be affectionate and show their love to you. I myself I'm not the best at it, unfortunately. I just my mom in medicine gave me my parents gave us two things. Our mom gave us our outer battle shell ready to do battle, and our dad gave us our heart. And so we had the best of both worlds in that. We knew how to defend, and we also knew how to love. And I'm more of a defender. And unfortunately for my wife and kids, they don't always see the big hugs and stuff, but they know when they get them, they're meaningful and they're heartfelt.
That's so awesome. I'm so happy for you that you were able to find your mom, and also you got new additions to the family. So can you tell us a little bit about who else was in that picture?
I've got 3 half sisters. 2 live in Ontario. 1 lives in England. I've met my half sister in England through Skype. And they come from a different walk of life, and they've had their struggles. But they phone me lots, and I'm the big brother that they always wish they had, and they all tell me that. And my parents there always talk about that. They think that their lives would have been a lot simpler if I would have been around. Because after my mom married this guy 3 months after she had me, and they've been married for 52 years. And they actually tried to come back and to see if I was still in the system to bring me back. Because they wanted to have me a part of their families.
Wow. That's very powerful right there. That is extraordinary. And have you met your sisters in person or just more over?
2 of them.
Oh yeah.
2 of them. Oh yeah, a few times. In fact, Erica was just here a month and a half ago for the first time, and I've been down there to Ontario a couple times, 3 times I guess. And so they're starting to make their treks out here to see us, and it's just a new relationship and a new chapter, right? So it really is a wonderful experience. I am very lucky to have had that opportunity to embrace them and welcome them into my life and my family's life.
Absolutely. And what would you say the biggest thing you learned from that whole experience is?
Everyone's journey is tough, right? I mean, life is a journey. There are peaks and valleys. Sometimes things are upside down, and at the same time they're inside out, and you just don't know what the answers are, but you'll find them. And I guess a part of that message I want to push out there is that mental health and wellness of people, and not getting too discouraged about things, and know that there's places out there and people out there that'll listen and ensure that you have the right steps, and don't. Sometimes the journey, you need other people on it, and you need to push, and sometimes you need to punch, and sometimes you just need a hug. But you cannot. Nothing is not fixable in life. Some things are going to be more challenging than others, but nothing's not fixable if you put the effort in.
That's an extraordinary lesson, and I'm grateful that you chose to share that with us today. And just all the different things that you've been through in your life have just been extraordinary and so fascinating to me. And I was wondering if you could tell us about one of the happiest times in your life. Maybe you've already discussed it, but if there's something else that maybe you're like, wow, I was extremely happy at that time.
Obviously, marrying my wife and my 2 kids. I think I've said all that stuff, but I think one area I've left out is the incredible friendships that I've been able to develop over the years. For me, I don't need a lot of friendships. To me, it gets too complicated. I don't need 30 people's problems because I got my own. But there's a lot of great families out there, and like your family is some of my closest friends, and you guys are all dear to me and my family. And I think along the way, those are very important, important steps in people's lives to have awesome people around you that you can surround yourself with, and know at a drop of a hat that you can pick up a phone and call those people, and that makes me very happy. I think that makes me whole. I know where I'm at with my family, but the totality of everything is, again, you don't get through life on your own, and you need to rely on other people and love them too. So
That's so awesome. And before we wrap up and move into the final 4 questions I ask everyone, is there anything else you would like to say to all of the listeners?
I think I've said enough.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll move into the first question, and that one is, what is some of the best advice you've received, and from whom?
What's the best advice? I think I won't be specific as to who, because I think it's a given that it doesn't matter. It doesn't. I know this is going to be very cliche. It does not matter how many times you get knocked down. What did you learn, and how hard are you going to come back and get on your feet and fight through whatever it is? Don't ever, ever, ever give up on whatever it is that you want. But you can get knocked down 1,000 times, but you better get up the 1,000th and first time, and believe in yourself. You will get through whatever. You got to believe in yourself, though.
Wow, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. The next question is, what is some of the worst advice you've received?
Get a credit card.
Actually, I like that answer a lot. That's a good one.
Worst advice. And don't get a credit limit increase.
Awesome.
That's kind of
that's a good one. That's a good life piece of advice. Everyone, remember that. Don't get a credit card. All right. The next question is, what advice would you give your younger self? Or if you can't think of it like that, someone in the younger generation?
Be patient. Be patient. You're not going to get what you want overnight. Good things, a lot of things take good time and effort, and setbacks. Like I said earlier, there's peaks and valleys, and when you hit the peaks, celebrate it, and when you start going down, hitting the valleys, you got your work cut out for you. But do not stop the work. And don't rely on anybody else. It is you. You have to face whatever it is that you have to do, and it's your story, your journey, and your roadmap to wherever it is that you want to go. But do not give up. It is tough. Life is tough, but again, nothing is given, everything is earned, and you'll have a better appreciation for it, a way better appreciation for it. And don't be hateful.
That's an excellent piece of advice. I love that one. I'm actually going to write some of that down and put it on a sticky note on my wall, because it's such an important message to hear. And the last question that I like to end every interview on, to leave us in a really awesome state, is, what are you grateful for today?
The life that I have. I've got a good life, and I'm grateful for my family. I don't think you can ever be more grateful than with all the pressures and pushes and pulls and nudges, and that after all this time you're still together with your family, and you've made a home. It's not just a house, it's a home. And I know my kids know that they come to a loving home every time they come in, even when they're getting in trouble. They have to know that we're not your buddy. I'm not my kid's buddy. Maybe when they're 45, I'll be their buddy. But, you're my kids, and I'm appreciative of my wife. She works very hard. She's had to put up with a lot of things, especially in this career. I've probably put her on a lot of emotional ups and downs, and for those things, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the people I have in my life.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and being so open and talking about the challenges in your career and in your life, but also some of the really great and happy moments in your life. I appreciate it so much. And we're going to end it there. So thank you.